After a bad car accident, I asked her to pick me up from the ER. She replied, "Sorry, I'm at lunch with my male best friend, can't just leave." I texted, "Okay." What the police officer told her when they approached her table at the restaurant changed everything about her dinner with her friend. You learn a lot about people in a crisis. I know this because I'm a paramedic. I see people on the worst day of their lives, every single day. I see how they react, how they treat each other when the sirens are wailing and the world is falling apart. I've seen strangers hold hands with the dying. I've seen husbands weep over their injured wives. I've seen the absolute best of humanity in the absolute worst of times. And then there was my girlfriend, Kate, and a car accident that showed me the absolute truth of her character. We had been together for 2 years. We lived in my apartment, a place I'd worked my tail off to afford. On the surface, things were good. She was fun, beautiful, and the life of every party. I was the quiet, stable one. I thought we were a good match. I provided the calm, and she provided the excitement. The only real point of friction was her male best friend, a guy named Julian. Julian was a trust fund kid who worked as a consultant, which seemed to mean he had lunch at expensive restaurants 4 times a week and offered unsolicited advice. Kate and Julian were inseparable. Their bond was, as she always described it, special. They had inside jokes I was never a part of, and their text conversations were constant and secretive. I'm not a jealous guy by nature. My job has taught me to be calm under pressure. But the closeness between them always felt off. It felt like I was the third wheel in their 2-person story. Still, I trusted her. I chose to believe her when she said they were just friends. That trust was violently and permanently shattered last Tuesday. I was on my way home from a long shift. It was raining hard. A kid in a souped-up Civic ran a red light and T-boned me right in the driver's side door. It was a brutal impact. The world was a chaotic mess of screeching metal, shattering glass, and the sickening crunch of my car folding in around me. The next thing I remember is my colleagues, my fellow paramedics, pulling me out of the wreckage. I was strapped to a backboard, my head was pounding, and my left arm was definitely broken. As they were loading me into the ambulance, a police officer I knew, a good cop named Dave, leaned in. "Hey man," he said, his face grim. "Your car is totaled. We're having it towed. We need an emergency contact to notify about the accident and the vehicle's location. Who do you want us to call?" "My girlfriend, Kate," I managed to say through the pain. I gave him her number. The ride to the ER was a blur. They cut my uniform off me, pumped me full of painkillers, and started running tests. X-rays confirmed it. A clean break in my left humerus and a moderate concussion. No internal bleeding, thank God. I was beaten up, bruised from head to toe, but I was going to be okay. After about an hour, a nurse came in. "We've tried calling your emergency contact, Kate, a few times," she said. "No answer. Is there someone else we can call?" My heart sank. No answer? I knew exactly where she was. It was Tuesday. Tuesday was her standing long lunch day with Julian. I pulled out my phone with my good hand. My screen was shattered, but it still worked. I sent her a text. "Hey, I've been in a bad car accident. I'm in the ER at St. Mary's. My arm is broken. Can you come pick me up? Car is totaled." I waited. A few minutes later, the 3 little dots appeared. Then, her reply. It was a message that would change the entire course of my life. "Kate, OMG, that's awful. So sorry to hear that. But I'm actually in the middle of a really important lunch with Julian right now. Can't just leave. Can you get a taxi or something? Let me know how it goes." I read the text once. Then I read it again. I felt a strange, cold clarity wash over me, cutting through the haze of the painkillers. She wasn't just dismissing me. She was prioritizing a social lunch with another man over my genuine, verifiable emergency. I was in the hospital, and she was worried about interrupting her appetizer. The final pillar of our relationship had just crumbled into dust. I thought about the police officer, Dave. I thought about the fact that they still needed to make official contact with her. And a plan began to form. A cold, precise, and beautifully appropriate plan. I took a screenshot of her text message. Then I texted back a single word. "Okay." Then I called Officer Dave. "Hey Dave," I said, my voice steady. "It's Adam Sterling. Thanks for your help at the scene. Listen, I know you guys were trying to reach my emergency contact, Kate. She's not answering her phone, but I know exactly where she is. It's important you make contact with her to complete the report. She's at a restaurant called the Gilded Spoon, downtown. I think it's crucial that an officer speaks to her in person to inform her of the situation." Dave, being a good cop and a good friend, understood immediately. "No problem, Adam," he said, a new edge in his voice. "We'll dispatch a unit right away to make an in-person notification. You just focus on getting better." I hung up the phone. I leaned back against the hospital pillows. Kate was having a very important lunch. I had a feeling it was about to be interrupted. Update 1. The hour I spent waiting in that ER bed was one of the most clarifying of my life. The physical pain was still there, a dull, throbbing ache in my arm and my head, but the emotional pain had been replaced by a kind of icy resolve. The betrayal was so absolute, so profound, that it had short-circuited all my normal feelings of hurt and sadness. All that was left was a quiet, focused anger and a need for decisive action. My friend and colleague Mike, who had been on the ambulance that brought me in, came to check on me. He took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. And it wasn't just the broken arm. "What's up, man?" he asked. "You look like you're about to declare war." I showed him the text from Kate. He read it and his face hardened. "You're kidding me," he said, his voice low. "She chose lunch over this, with that Julian guy?" "She did," I confirmed. "So what are you gonna do?" he asked. "I already did it," I said. "I had the police dispatched to her restaurant to make an in-person notification." Mike stared at me for a second, and then he let out a low whistle. "Dude, that is savage and brilliant." The story of what happened at the Gilded Spoon came to me later from Officer Dave, who had heard it directly from the 2 patrol officers he had sent. It was even better than I had imagined. The Gilded Spoon is one of those places that's all about appearances. It's expensive, it's trendy, and it's always filled with people who want to be seen. Kate and Julian were apparently seated at a prime table near the window, laughing and sharing a bottle of overpriced rosé. 2 uniformed police officers walked into the restaurant. The place immediately went quiet. Cops don't just show up at a place like that for no reason. People started staring, whispering. The officers walked calmly and deliberately through the dining room, their eyes scanning the tables. They stopped directly at Kate and Julian's table. One of the officers, a tall, imposing guy with a serious face, looked directly at Kate. "Ma'am, are you Kate Miller?" he asked, his voice calm but loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear clearly. Kate looked up, her face a mask of confusion and annoyance. "Yes," she said. "Is there a problem, officer? We're here regarding a major vehicle collision involving your partner, Mr. Adam Sterling," the officer stated, his tone flat and official. He was transported by ambulance to St. Mary's Hospital from the scene of the accident with significant injuries. The color drained from Kate's face. Julian was staring, his wine glass frozen halfway to his lips. The officer continued, his voice unwavering. "His vehicle was totaled in the collision. We have been attempting to contact you for the last 2 hours as you are listed as his primary emergency contact. Mr. Sterling informed us we could find you here. He asked us to make official, in-person notification of the incident and to inform you that you will need to coordinate with the towing company regarding the removal of any personal effects from the vehicle." Every word was a hammer blow. Major vehicle collision. Transported by ambulance. Significant injuries. Vehicle totaled. Emergency contact. The officer wasn't accusing her of anything. He was just stating the cold, hard, official facts. But in doing so, he was painting a picture for everyone in that restaurant to see. A man was in the hospital after a serious accident, and his girlfriend, his emergency contact, was enjoying a leisurely lunch with another man, completely unreachable. Julian, according to the story, looked at Kate with a new expression. The charming lunch companion was gone, replaced by a man looking at a stranger who had just revealed a core of shocking selfishness. The officer concluded his speech. "That is all, ma'am. You should probably head to the hospital." The 2 officers then turned and walked out of the restaurant as calmly as they had entered. They left behind a crater of silence, a table of half-eaten food, and the shattered reputation of a woman who had just been publicly exposed at her most callous. Her very important lunch was officially over. Update 2. The immediate aftermath was a predictable storm of chaos, which I observed from the calm, safe harbor of my hospital room. After being discharged from the ER with my arm in a sling and a handful of prescriptions, my sister came to pick me up. She had been my real emergency contact all along, and I had called her as soon as I was done with the police. The fury in her voice when I told her the story about Kate was enough to power a small city. She took me back to her place to recover. I had no intention of going back to my apartment until it had been purged of Kate's presence. Kate, of course, started blowing up my phone. A string of frantic texts and missed calls. "Adam, I'm on my way to the hospital. I'm so sorry, my phone was on silent." A classic, pathetic lie. "Where are you? They said you were discharged. Why aren't you answering me? I'm freaking out." "This is all your fault. You sent the cops to my lunch to humiliate me." The progression from feigned concern to furious accusation was swift and telling. I didn't reply to any of it. I just blocked her number. The real story of her afternoon came from Julian. He, it turns out, was not interested in being a supporting character in her drama. He sent me a message on social media that evening. It was surprisingly direct. "Hey Adam," it read. "I don't know you well, but I was with Kate at lunch today. I just want you to know that I had no idea about your accident." The second the police left, I paid my half of the bill and got out of there. The way she dismissed something so serious, that's not a person I want to be associated with. I'm sorry for whatever part I played in your relationship issues. I'm done with her. Hope you have a fast recovery. It was a self-serving message, of course, designed to absolve himself of any guilt. But it confirmed my victory. I hadn't just humiliated her. I had exposed her true character to the very person she was trying to impress. She had lost her boyfriend and her best friend in the same afternoon. With my sister's help, I put the rest of my plan into motion. While I rested, she acted as my general. She called a moving company that specialized in content removal for breakups. She met them at my apartment the next day. They packed every single thing Kate owned, every piece of clothing, every shoe, every book, into boxes. They were instructed to leave the boxes neatly stacked in the living room. Then, my sister called a locksmith. The locks were changed. Finally, she sent a formal email to Kate from a new email address. The subject line was "Retrieval of Personal Property." The email read, "Kate, this email is to inform you that your relationship with Adam Sterling has been terminated. As you are not on the lease for his apartment, your residency has also been terminated. All of your personal belongings have been packed. You have a 48-hour window to arrange for their professional removal. You are to contact me, Adam's sister, at this email address to schedule a specific 2-hour time slot. You will be met at the property and allowed entry for the sole purpose of removing your belongings. You will not be permitted to remain in the apartment afterward. If your property is not removed within the 48-hour window, it will be considered abandoned and will be disposed of. Any attempt to contact Adam directly will be considered harassment." It was cold, it was legal, and it was final. She had abandoned me in my moment of need. I was now treating her with the same impersonal, logistical detachment. Final update. It has been 7 months since the accident. My arm has healed, the concussion is a distant memory, and my life is blessedly, wonderfully quiet. Kate, as instructed, coordinated with my sister to retrieve her belongings. The story I got was that she showed up with her father, looking sullen and defeated. She didn't say a word the entire time. She just directed the movers her father had hired, cleared out her boxes, and left the key on the counter. The social fallout for her was, from what I hear, absolute. The story of the police showing up at the Gilded Spoon became a legendary piece of gossip in her social circle. It was a story with no good spin. No one could defend her actions. She was the woman who chose brunch over her boyfriend in the ER. Her attempts to paint me as a manipulative villain failed spectacularly because the core facts were so damning. She lost most of her friends, not because they were loyal to me, but because they were embarrassed to be associated with her. She tried to reach out to me about a month ago. A long, rambling email full of excuses and non-apologies. She said she had panicked. She said she wasn't thinking clearly. She said Julian had put a lot of pressure on her. It was a masterclass in blame shifting. She concluded by saying she missed me and the stable life we had, and that she had learned her lesson. I didn't reply. I just created a new filter in my email to send anything from her address directly to the trash. Her lesson was not my concern. My revenge was not about the police or the public scene. That was just the delivery mechanism. The real revenge was in the quiet, decisive way I excised her from my life. She had treated me as an inconvenience, a background character in her exciting life. So I simply wrote her out of my script. I took the life I had built, the stability she had taken for granted, and I made it mine again, completely and totally. The most satisfying part is the quiet knowledge that I saw the truth and acted on it without hesitation. A relationship is a partnership, and the first rule of a partnership is that you show up when it counts. She didn't just fail the test, she set the test paper on fire and walked away laughing. The look on her face when the police officer approached her table was just the first consequence. The empty apartment, the silent phone, the life she lost, those were the real lessons. She couldn't risk getting sick before her fun trip. In the end, I was the one who was cured. I got rid of the sickness in my life, and that sickness was her. At a friend's wedding, she leaned over and said, "Don't get any ideas. Marriage is for men who deserve it." I smiled. But when the bride tossed the bouquet, what happened next left her speechless. I've always believed that people tell you who they are. You just have to be willing to listen. For 2 years, I was in a relationship with a woman named Claire. On the surface, things were good. We lived together in a house that I own, we had a good social life, and we were, by all accounts, a successful couple. I run a risk management firm, which is a dry way of saying I spend my days analyzing worst-case scenarios and creating contingency plans. It's a job that has made me very good at seeing the cracks in a foundation before the whole thing comes crashing down. Claire comes from a family that values appearances above all else. They have money, but it's the kind of money that's more about status than security. They never approved of me. I was self-made, not from their world. They saw my practicality as a lack of ambition and my quiet confidence as a weakness. Claire, I thought, was different. I thought she saw me for who I was. But over the last year, I started to notice her adopting her family's condescending tone. Little comments here and there, disguised as jokes about my clothes, my car, my friends. I was listening, and I didn't like what I was hearing. The relationship was on a short leash. I wasn't a simp, and I wasn't going to fund a lifestyle for someone who didn't respect me. We had a clear arrangement. I owned the house, but she contributed a set amount for bills each month from her job in marketing. It was a partnership, or so I thought. I had decided, privately, that if things didn't improve, I was going to end it. I was just waiting for one final, undeniable piece of data. That data arrived yesterday, at our friend's wedding. My best friend David was marrying his longtime girlfriend, Maria. It was a beautiful ceremony, the kind that makes you feel hopeful about the world. Claire was on her best behavior, playing the part of the perfect, supportive girlfriend. But during the reception, as we sat at our table, watching the happy couple have their first dance, the mask slipped. She had had a few glasses of champagne, and her condescension was bubbling to the surface. She leaned over to me, a smug little smile on her face, and gestured towards David and Maria on the dance floor. "Don't get any ideas," she whispered, her voice laced with a sweet poison. "Marriage is for men who deserve it." The music was loud, but her words cut through it like a razor. It wasn't a joke. It was a verdict, a judgment on my worthiness, delivered with a smile. She was telling me in no uncertain terms that I was not on her level, that I was a placeholder, a convenience, but not a man she would ever consider worthy of marriage. I didn't react. I didn't get angry. My mind, trained to see the worst-case scenario, simply accepted the data she had provided. This was the crack in the foundation. This was the point of failure. And my contingency plan kicked in immediately. I just looked at her, smiled a calm, pleasant smile, and said, "Of course not." She squeezed my hand, thinking she had put me in my place. She had no idea what she had just set in motion. She thought she was the one in control, the one holding all the cards. She didn't know that I was about to fold, walk away from the table, and then burn the whole casino down. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. I was the perfect boyfriend. I laughed, I socialized, I even danced with her. But all the while, my mind was working, assembling a plan with cold, logistical precision. The final act of the night was the bouquet toss, and I decided, right then and there, that it was going to be the grand finale of our relationship. Update 1. My plan required a few key allies and a bit of luck. The first person I approached was the bride, Maria. I caught her for a moment, while Claire was in the restroom. Maria has known me for years. She's sharp, and she's never been Claire's biggest fan. Maria, I said, my voice low and urgent. I need a huge favor. It's about the bouquet toss, and it's about me and Claire. She looked at me, her eyes full of concern. What's wrong? She just told me that marriage is for men who deserve it, and that I shouldn't get any ideas, I said flatly. Maria's face went from concern to furious in a split second. She did not. At my wedding, she shook her head. That's it, I'm done with her. What do you need? The plan was audacious. I told her that instead of tossing the bouquet to the crowd, I needed her to do something very specific. I needed her to create a moment. She listened, a slow, wicked smile spreading across her face. Oh, this is going to be so much better than just throwing it, she said. Next, I found my sister, Laura. Laura is a force of nature. She's a lawyer, and she has a flair for the dramatic. She was also my designated getaway driver. I gave her my car keys and a set of instructions. While the bouquet toss was happening, she was to go back to my house, let herself in with the spare key I'd given her, and pack an overnight bag for me. She was also to retrieve a small, very important box from the back of my closet. The final piece was the DJ. I slipped him $100 bill and gave him a very specific musical cue. He was a pro and just gave me a nod and a wink. As the time for the bouquet toss approached, I could see Claire getting excited. She and her single friends were positioning themselves at the front of the crowd, giggling and shoving each other like teenagers. This was her world, a world of superficial contests and public validation. The DJ called all the single ladies to the dance floor. Maria stood on a small stage, her back to the crowd, holding the bouquet. The traditional countdown started, but on 1, she didn't throw it. She turned around. She scanned the crowd, her eyes passing over Claire without a flicker of recognition. Then her face lit up. She walked to the edge of the stage and down the small set of stairs directly into the crowd. The women parted for her like the Red Sea. She walked straight up to a woman standing near the back. A woman named Hannah. Hannah was a friend of mine from college, a kind, intelligent, and beautiful person who I had reconnected with a few months ago after she moved back to the city. We were just friends, but there was an easy chemistry between us that had always been there. She was also one of the few people I had invited to the wedding from my side. Maria handed the bouquet directly to Hannah. The crowd was confused, whispering. Claire was standing at the front, her face a mask of disbelief. She had been robbed of her moment, and then the DJ played my cue. The upbeat dance music cut out and a slow, beautiful instrumental piece began to play. All the lights in the room dimmed except for a single spotlight, and that spotlight swung from the stage and landed directly on me. I started walking. I walked past the tables, past the confused guests, and onto the dance floor. I walked past Claire, who was staring at me with her mouth open. I didn't even look at her. I walked straight to Hannah, who was holding the bouquet and looking utterly bewildered. I took her free hand. My sister Laura appeared at my side as if by magic. She handed me the small box from my closet. I turned to Hannah. In front of everyone, I got down on one knee. I opened the box. Inside was a simple, elegant diamond ring. It was my grandmother's ring. Hannah, I said, my voice clear and steady, amplified by the microphone the DJ had discreetly handed me. I came here tonight, and I saw what a real partnership looks like. It's about love and respect, and knowing the other person deserves the best. Claire just reminded me that marriage is for men who deserve it, and I've realized I also want a partner who deserves the best. I know this is insane, but I'd rather take a crazy chance on a future with someone as amazing as you than spend another day in a relationship where I'm not valued. I paused. Will you marry me? The entire room was silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Hannah was in shock, her eyes wide. Claire looked like she had been turned to stone. Hannah looked at me, at the ring, at Maria, who was giving her a frantic thumbs up, and then back at me. A slow smile spread across her face. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I will. The room exploded. Update 2. The wedding reception devolved into the most glorious, beautiful chaos I have ever witnessed. As I slid the ring onto Hannah's finger, our friends erupted in cheers. David and Maria rushed over to hug us. My family was crying with joy. Claire, however, was not cheering. She let out a sound that I can only describe as a wounded animal. She started screaming right there in the middle of the dance floor. She was screaming at me, at Hannah, at Maria. She was calling me a monster, a liar, a cheat. Her friends tried to rally around her, but the tide of public opinion had turned so swiftly and so completely against her that they were left stranded. Most of the guests were either congratulating us or staring at Claire's meltdown with a mixture of pity and disgust. David, the groom, finally stepped in. He calmly walked over to Claire and told her it was time to leave. Her own father, a man who had always looked down on me, just stood there, speechless, watching his daughter unravel. She was eventually escorted out of the reception, still screaming about how this was all a setup. And she was right. It was a setup. A beautiful, intricate, and perfectly executed setup. Hannah, of course, had been in on the whole thing. The reconnection, a few months ago, wasn't an accident. After months of Claire's growing disrespect, I had reached out to Hannah, my old friend, and confided in her. The proposal wasn't a spontaneous, crazy act. It was a carefully planned escape hatch. Hannah, who had been through a bad breakup of her own, agreed to help me. She thought Claire's behavior was appalling and was more than happy to play the part of my surprise fiancé. The ring was my grandmother's, but the proposal was our performance. After Claire was gone, the party kicked into high gear. It was no longer just David and Maria's wedding reception. It was a joint engagement party. The joy in that room was real and overwhelming. My sister Laura had done her job perfectly. While the drama was unfolding, she had gone to my house. She didn't just pack me an overnight bag. She had hired a 24-hour moving crew that she had on standby. In the 2 hours we were at the reception, they had cleared every single one of Claire's belongings from my house. Every piece of clothing, every shoe, every book, every stick of furniture she had brought into the house was packed and moved to a storage unit. When I finally left the reception with Hannah, my new fiancée, we didn't go back to my house. I had booked the honeymoon suite at the hotel where the wedding was held. My overnight bag was waiting for us. The next morning, I finally turned my phone back on. It was a war zone. Dozens of missed calls from Claire and her parents, a flood of texts that ranged from threatening to pleading. I ignored them all. Instead, I sent her a single, final text message. Claire, you were right. Marriage is for men who deserve it. And a man who deserves it wouldn't stay with a woman who doesn't respect him. You are free to find a man you deem worthy. Your belongings are in Storage Unit 42 at 123 Storage Way. The code is 1234. The first month is paid for. This is my final communication with you. Then I blocked her number and the numbers of her entire family. Hannah and I spent the rest of the day laughing about the sheer absurdity of it all. We ordered room service, drank champagne, and planned our next move. The fake engagement had felt surprisingly real. We decided, right then and there, to see where this crazy story might actually take us. Final update. The weeks following the wedding proposal were a masterclass in damage control, mostly on Claire's part. She and her family tried to spin a narrative that I was an unstable, manipulative monster who had staged the entire event to humiliate her. They hired a lawyer and sent me a threatening letter demanding financial compensation for emotional trauma and for her share of the assets from our long-term partnership. My sister, who, as I mentioned, is a lawyer, had a field day with their letter. She sent back a response that was both legally devastating and a work of art. It included a detailed accounting of Claire's minimal financial contributions to our household, a copy of the deed to my house, in my name only, purchased before I met her, and a compilation of statements from wedding guests who'd overheard her condescending comments throughout the night. The letter concluded by stating that if they chose to pursue legal action, I would be filing a countersuit for defamation and for the repayment of several large personal expenses she had charged to my credit card over the past year. They went silent after that. The threat of having their own finances and Claire's behavior scrutinized in a courtroom was enough to make them back down. The social fallout was even more satisfying. The story of the proposal became the stuff of legend. David and Maria, my loyal friends, made sure the true version of events was the one that circulated. They told everyone about Claire's comment, about her disrespect, and about how I had simply taken her at her word. Claire, who had always been so concerned with her social standing, was now a pariah. She was the woman who had been so arrogant that her boyfriend proposed to another woman in front of her. She eventually had to move back in with her parents. Her marketing job, which was at a firm where social connections are everything, became untenable. She quit a few weeks after the wedding, unable to face the whispers and the pitying looks. As for me and Hannah, the fake engagement turned into a real relationship faster than either of us could have expected. The adrenaline and sheer absurdity of that night forged a bond between us that was stronger than any relationship I had ever known. We spent the next few months getting to know each other again, not as old college friends, but as two people who had found each other in the most unconventional way possible. We got married 6 months ago. It was a small, quiet ceremony on a beach with just our closest friends and family. David and Maria were our witnesses. There was no drama, no performance, just a real, honest commitment between two people who respect and admire each other. I learned a powerful lesson from all of this. When people show you who they are, don't try to convince yourself they're someone else. Don't make excuses for them. Just listen. Claire told me I didn't deserve to be married to her, and I finally realized she was absolutely right. I deserved so much better. And in the end, that's exactly what I got. She wanted to be the final word on my worth. Instead, she just became the first sentence in a much better story. At a family dinner, my girlfriend smiled sweetly at me and said, "Either pay for my brother's college, or we're done. That's the bare minimum a real man does." Her parents nodded in agreement. I didn't argue. I just smiled and left without a word. 2 weeks later, she finally learned where that money really went, and it wasn't toward her brother. You can learn a lot about a person by the way they look at you when they think you owe them something. It is a look of pure, unearned confidence. A look that says, "This is mine, you just happen to be holding it for me." I saw that look last night. I saw it on the face of the woman I loved and on the faces of her parents. And in that one silent moment, I understood everything. My name is Liam. I own a custom woodworking business. I take old reclaimed wood and turn it into furniture. It is a quiet living, but a good one. I build things that last, things with character and strength. I thought my relationship with my girlfriend Chloe was the same. We had been together for 4 years. We were partners. We kept our finances separate, but worked toward shared goals. I respected her drive, her ambition. I was not a meal ticket. I was her teammate. At least that was the story I was living. Her family was always part of the package. Her father, Robert, a man who measured his worth by the value of his stock portfolio. Her mother, Carol, who believed her daughter was destined for a life of luxury. And her younger brother, Leo, a 19-year-old kid who had never worked a day in his life and saw the world as his personal playground. They were polite to me, but there was always an undercurrent of evaluation, as if they were constantly running a credit check on my character. There is something else you need to know. My life is not just about me. I have a younger sister, Sarah. A year ago, her husband, my best friend since childhood, passed away after a long, brutal fight with cancer. He left her with 2 beautiful kids and a mountain of medical debt that would make your head spin. Sarah is the strongest person I know. She works 2 jobs, she never complains, and she is fiercely proud. I help where I can, slipping her cash for groceries, covering a utility bill here and there. But she resists any major help. She is determined to make it on her own. Her struggle is a quiet, constant ache in my heart. Last night, we were all at her parents' house for their weekly family dinner. The conversation was the usual mix of Robert's stock tips and Carol's gossip. Then, after the main course, the ambush began. Robert cleared his throat, a signal that a formal announcement was coming. "Liam," he began, "as you know, Leo has been accepted to a very prestigious private university. We are all incredibly proud." I nodded and congratulated Leo, who just shrugged and kept looking at his phone. Then Chloe turned to me. She placed her hand on my arm, her smile perfectly sweet, her eyes perfectly cold. "We have been talking. she said, gesturing to her parents. And we have realized that this is a perfect opportunity for you to show your commitment to this family. I knew where this was going. I could feel the floor falling out from under me. She continued, her voice light and casual, as if she were asking me to pass the salt. We want you to pay for Leo's tuition, the first year at least. I just stared at her. The cost of a single year at that university was more than the down payment on my first house. She saw the look on my face and her smile tightened. The sweetness vanished, replaced by a hard, unyielding edge. Either pay for my brother's college or we are done, she said, her voice low and firm. That is the bare minimum a real man does for the family he's going to marry into. I looked at her parents. Robert and Carol were both nodding in agreement, their faces set with the same look of righteous expectation. They had discussed this. They had planned this. This was not a request. It was an ultimatum. A shakedown. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. My worth to them was not in my love for their daughter, my character, or my hard work. It was in my bank account. I was not a future son-in-law. I was a resource to be tapped. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I did not defend myself. I looked at each of them, at their confident, entitled faces. I saw my entire future with this woman laid out before me. A future of endless expectations, of constantly having to prove my worth through financial transactions. And then I thought of my sister. I thought of her getting up at 5 in the morning to work a shift before getting her kids ready for school. I thought of her trying to figure out which bill she could skip this month to afford a new pair of shoes for her son. The contrast between her quiet struggle and their loud, greedy demands was so stark it almost made me laugh. I stood up from the table. I placed my napkin neatly beside my plate. I smiled, a real, genuine smile, and I walked out of the dining room without saying a single word. I heard Chloe call my name, first in confusion, then in anger. I did not stop. I walked out the front door, got in my truck, and drove away. I did not know exactly what my plan was yet, but I knew one thing for certain. My money was going to support a family. It just was not going to be hers. Update 1. It has been 1 week since I walked out of that dinner, a week of absolute silence from me and a week of escalating hysteria from them. Thank you for the messages of support. It is good to know that the world is not entirely populated by people who see relationships as a business transaction. The night I drove away, I did not go home. I drove straight to my sister Sarah's house. It was late, but she was still up, sitting at her kitchen table surrounded by a sea of paperwork. Bills, insurance forms, letters from debt collectors. She was trying to make sense of an impossible situation. When she saw me, she tried to put on a brave face, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. The weight of the world was on her shoulders. We did not talk much that night. I just made her a cup of tea and sat with her while she worked. I watched her kids sleeping, their faces peaceful and innocent, completely unaware of the storm their mother was weathering for them. I left before the sun came up, my resolve hardened into something unbreakable. The first thing I did the next morning was go to my bank. I have been saving for years, building an investment portfolio. It was my future fund, the money I had set aside for a house, for a family, for a life with Chloe. I liquidated the entire thing. It was a significant sum, enough to change a life, and that is exactly what I intended to do. Meanwhile, the messages from Chloe and her family started pouring in. At first, they were angry and confused. From Chloe, "What was that last night? You just walked out? You are being so childish. Call me." From Robert, "Liam, I am very disappointed in your behavior. You embarrassed my daughter and disrespected my family. We expect an apology." I did not reply. I spent the day with my financial advisor and a lawyer, setting up a trust for my sister's children. By day 3, their tone had shifted to a kind of confused bargaining. From Chloe, "Okay, I get it. You were surprised. We should have talked about it first, but it is a good investment in our future. My parents will respect you for it." From Carol, "Liam, Chloe is very upset. You know how much her brother means to her. A real man provides for his family." The constant repetition of that phrase, "a real man," was starting to get under my skin. They had a very specific and very expensive definition of what that meant. I continued to ignore them. I packed up every single thing Chloe owned that was at my house. She had not officially moved in, but she had accumulated a lot of stuff. I boxed it all up, labeled it, and put it in my workshop for safekeeping. I changed the passcodes on my home security system. Then, I went back to my sister's house. I did not tell her what I was about to do. I just told her I needed her to sign some papers for a family investment fund I was setting up for the kids. She was hesitant, always wary of charity, but I framed it as a legal thing to protect their future. She signed them. The next day, two things happened. First, a check from the trust was delivered to the hospital that held the majority of her late husband's medical debt. The check paid off the entire balance, every last penny. Second, another check was delivered to the bank that held her mortgage. It paid off the entire remaining balance on her house. Sarah called me, her voice choked with tears. She could not speak at first. She just kept saying, "Liam, what did you do?" I told her I had just made a sound investment in the only family that mattered to me. I told her that her husband would have wanted her to be free, to be able to raise their kids without that crushing weight on her shoulders. For the first time in a year, I heard her really, truly laugh. It was the best sound in the world. That same afternoon, I finally responded to Chloe. She had been sending me messages all day, each one more desperate than the last. Her brother's tuition deposit was due at the end of the week. My response was a single email, sent to her, her brother, and her parents. The subject line was, "A real man." The body of the email was simple. "You are correct. A real man provides for his family. He supports them, protects them, and invests in their future. That is why my savings, the money you demanded for Leo's education, has been used to pay off the medical debt and the mortgage for my widowed sister and her 2 children. I consider this the bare minimum. Our relationship is over. A courier will be delivering Chloe's belongings to your house tomorrow." I attached 2 documents to the email. The first was a copy of the paid-in-full statement from the hospital. The second was a copy of the paid-in-full statement from the mortgage company. I hit send. Then I blocked their numbers on my phone and their email addresses. The silence that followed was a relief. I knew the storm was not over, but I had redirected it. I had taken their greed, their entitlement, their ugly ultimatum, and I had transformed it into something good. Something real. Let them rage. I had a family to take care of. Update 2. It has been 2 weeks since I sent that email. The silence from my end has remained unbroken, but the shockwaves from my decision have spread in ways I never could have predicted. I have not spoken to Chloe or her family, but the story has come back to me through multiple sources. The first thing that happened was an explosion of rage. I heard from a mutual friend that Chloe had a complete meltdown. She called me every name she could think of. She accused me of betraying her, of stealing her money. Her father, Robert, apparently tried to call his lawyer, screaming about suing me for emotional distress and for breaking a verbal contract. His lawyer, a man with a functioning brain, must have told him he did not have a case because the legal threats never materialized. Their anger was based on a simple delusional belief that my money was already theirs. They were not angry because I had helped my sister. They were angry because the bank they had planned to rob had suddenly closed its doors. After the rage came the smear campaign. Chloe and her mother started telling everyone who would listen a twisted version of the story. In their telling, I was an unstable, cruel man who had dangled the promise of a secure future in front of Chloe, only to snatch it away. They claimed I had stolen their family's chance at a better life by giving the money to my sister, who they painted as irresponsible and undeserving. It did not work. And this is where the story gets interesting. My sister Sarah lives in the same town as Chloe's parents. It is not a huge place. People talk. The story of her husband's passing and her subsequent struggles was well known in their community. She is a beloved figure, a woman who has faced tragedy with grace and strength. When the news of my investment in her future became public, and it did, because you cannot pay off that much debt in a small town without people finding out, the reaction was overwhelming. People were touched. Our story, the story of a brother helping his sister in her darkest hour, became the talk of the town. A local newspaper even did a small piece on it, a good news story about family and community. They did not use my name at my request, but they described me as a local businessman. Now imagine you are Robert and Carol. You have spent years building a reputation as pillars of the community. You sit on charity boards, you donate to local causes, you pride yourselves on your image. And then this story comes out. A story about a local man's incredible act of generosity. And at the same time, your daughter is going around town telling everyone that this same man is a monster for not giving that exact money to her lazy, entitled brother instead. The two narratives did not align. People started connecting the dots. The story of the family dinner, of the ultimatum, started to leak out. Chloe's attempts to paint me as the villain backfired spectacularly. She was not just seen as greedy, she was seen as ghoulish. She was the woman who tried to divert a lifeline from a widow and her children to pay for her brother's frat parties. Robert and Carol have been humiliated. Their friends have been avoiding them. Their social standing, the thing they value above all else, has been shattered. They have been exposed as the greedy, entitled people they truly are. Chloe's life has been a train wreck. She is still living with her parents. Her friends, who were all part of the same materialistic world, have distanced themselves from her. The scandal is too ugly. She is a social pariah, and Leo, the brother at the center of all this, he did not get to go to his prestigious private university. He is attending the local community college. I have heard that his parents are making him get a part-time job to pay for his own books. It seems they have finally decided to teach him the value of $1, now that their access to mine has been permanently cut off. I saw Chloe once about a week ago. I was at the grocery store. She was in the checkout line a few lanes over. She looked smaller, diminished. The confidence was gone. She saw me and for a second our eyes met. I did not feel anger. I did not feel pity. I felt nothing at all. She was just a stranger, a ghost from a life I no longer lived. She looked away first. The best part of this whole thing is my sister. The change in her is like night and day. With the financial weight gone, she is lighter, happier. She has been able to quit one of her jobs and spend more time with her kids. The dark circles under her eyes are gone. She smiles more. My investment did not just pay off her debt. It gave her back her life. It gave my niece and nephew back their mother. That is what a real man does. He does not pay for entitlement. He does not fund arrogance. He builds things that last. He protects the people he loves. He invests in a future that is built on something real. My future is with my family, the one that is bound by love and loyalty, not by invoices and expectations, and that is a foundation that can never be broken. Final update. It has been 6 months since I walked out on that family and their outrageous demands. The dust has settled, and the new world I have built for myself is quiet, strong, and completely my own. I wanted to share this final update because the story has reached a conclusion that is more complete and satisfying than I ever could have engineered. My life is good. My business is thriving. I spend my weekends helping my sister with projects around her house, the house that is now truly hers, and playing with my niece and nephew. Seeing them happy and secure, without the shadow of debt hanging over their future, is the greatest return on investment I could ever ask for. Sarah is doing incredibly well. She has even started dating again, a good man who adores her and her kids. The transformation in her life has been the true victory in all of this. As for Chloe and her family, their story is a quiet tragedy of their own making. The social humiliation they suffered was not a passing storm. It was a permanent change in their climate. Robert and Carol have become recluses. Their reputation in the community was so important to them, and its loss has been a blow from which they have not recovered. They no longer host parties. They are no longer on the boards of charities. They have been exposed, and their world has shrunk as a result. Leo, the would-be Ivy Leaguer, is still at community college. I have heard through the grapevine that he is struggling. He has never had to work for anything in his life, and the reality of responsibility has been a shock to his system. He is learning a hard lesson, one that his parents should have taught him years ago. And Chloe, her story is the one that has come full circle. After months of unemployment and social isolation, she finally sent me an email. It was not a demand or an apology. It was a plea. She wrote that she had been doing a lot of thinking, that she had been in therapy. She said she finally understood how wrong she had been, how her family's values had twisted her own. She wrote that she was not asking for a second chance, but for a conversation. She wanted to understand how she had become the person who could do what she did. I thought about it for a long time. The old me, the man who always wanted to fix things, would have agreed to meet. But I am not that man anymore. I have learned that some things are too broken to be repaired. And more importantly, I have learned that I am not responsible for fixing her. I did not reply to her email. I just deleted it. Her journey of self-discovery is her own. I am no longer a part of her story. The final, perfect end to this chapter came last week. I received a letter in the mail. It was from a local scholarship fund that helps children who have lost a parent. The letter was a thank you. It said that an anonymous donation had been made in my sister's late husband's name. A donation large enough to fund a full scholarship for one student each year for the next decade. The letter stated that the donation had been made by a local family who wished to honor the spirit of true family support in the community. I called my sister, and she had no idea what I was talking about. It was not her. Then it hit me. It was Robert and Carol. It was their desperate, public attempt to buy back their reputation. A pathetic, transparent effort to rehab their image by throwing money at the very cause my actions had championed. I did not feel anger. I just felt a quiet sense of victory. My one, simple act of walking away from that dinner had not just saved myself. It had not just saved my sister. It had forced a family of takers to finally give something back. They had tried to extort me, to use my money to fund their entitled dreams. And in the end, they were the ones writing the check, funding the future of a deserving child, all in a desperate attempt to look like the very thing they are not, a real family. My revenge was never about destroying them. It was about building something better. And in the end, the ripples of my one decision have done more good than I ever could have imagined. They wanted me to pay for a bare minimum. Instead, I raised the standard. And they are the ones who are now, finally trying to meet it. My fiancé laughed. I put peanuts in your dinner to prove you're faking your allergy. You're just picky. As my throat swelled up, I texted, "Call 911. Then I handed the EMTs the food sample and filed a police report for assault with a deadly weapon. When the officers arrested her in the ER waiting room, this happened 18 months ago. Writing it all out now because I finally feel ready to tell the whole story. I'm 29, was engaged to Lisa, 27. Notice I said was. We'd been together 2 years, engaged for 4 months, wedding planned for next spring. Not anymore. Here's what you need to know up front. I have a severe peanut allergy, not the kind where I get a little itchy, the kind where my throat closes up and I stop breathing. Diagnosed when I was 6 after I nearly died at a birthday party. Carried an EpiPen ever since. Lisa knew this from date 1. I told her immediately because it's kind of important when someone's cooking for you or picking restaurants. She seemed understanding. Said her cousin had a shellfish allergy, so she got it. That was 2 years ago. Over time, I started noticing comments, little things. We'd be out to eat, and I'd ask the server about peanut ingredients. Lisa would sigh, roll her eyes. One time she said I was being dramatic. I let it slide, figured she was just tired or didn't understand the severity. Then about 6 months ago, the comments got more pointed. We were at her parents' house for dinner. Her mom made Thai food. I politely asked about peanuts in the sauce. Lisa laughed it off, told her mom I was paranoid about food, said I used my allergy as an excuse to be picky. I corrected her right there. Said no, it's a real medical condition. Her mom was great about it, showed me all the ingredients. But Lisa looked annoyed that I'd contradicted her. On the drive home, she went off, said I embarrassed her, made her look bad in front of her family. I was stunned. I just asked a basic safety question. We fought about it. She apologized eventually, said she was stressed about work. I accepted it and moved on, but it kept happening. At restaurants, she'd order dishes with peanut sauces and get irritated when I wouldn't try a bite. Said I was being difficult, that I made everything about my allergy. Her friends started making comments too. One of them joked at a party that I was high maintenance. Lisa laughed along. Didn't defend me. I started feeling crazy, like I was overreacting to a legitimate medical issue. 2 months ago, she brought home pad thai. I checked the container. Peanuts listed right there in the ingredients. I told her I couldn't eat it, obviously. She got mad, said I was being ridiculous, that trace amounts wouldn't kill me. I explained that yes, they absolutely could. That's what severe means. She called me dramatic and ate it herself while I made a sandwich. Red flag. I know. I should have walked away then, but we'd already sent save the dates. Wedding deposits were paid. Her parents were involved. It felt too complicated to end it over food disagreements. Stupid reasoning. I know that now. Last week she started talking about the honeymoon. Wanted to go to Thailand. I reminded her that Thai food is heavy on peanuts and it would be risky. She got defensive, said I was ruining everything, that I was using my allergy to control where we went. That word, control. Like my life-threatening condition was a manipulation tactic. We had a huge fight. I told her if she couldn't take my allergy seriously, we had a problem. She said I was being paranoid, that people with real allergies don't make such a big deal about it. Real allergies, like mine, wasn't real. She apologized the next day, again, said she'd been talking to her sister who said I was probably just anxious about food, not actually allergic. That adult-onset anxiety can mimic allergy symptoms. I told her I'd had this allergy for 23 years. It wasn't anxiety. It was a documented medical condition with hospital records and everything. She seemed to accept that. Said okay, she believed me. I thought we were past it. Then tonight happened. I got home from work around 6:30. Lisa said she'd made dinner. Spaghetti with meat sauce. One of my safe meals. She knows I can eat it because she'd made it a dozen times before. I sat down. Took a few bites. It tasted a little different. Sweeter maybe. But I figured she'd adjusted the recipe. Third bite, my mouth started tingling. Fourth bite, my tongue felt thick. I stopped eating. Asked Lisa what she put in the sauce. She shrugged, said the usual stuff. Tomatoes, garlic, beef, herbs. My throat started feeling tight. I asked again, specifically, if there was anything different. She was looking at her phone, said no, same as always. My throat was definitely swelling now. I stood up, went to grab my EpiPen from my bag in the hallway. That's when I heard her laugh. I turned around. She was watching me, smiling. "What's wrong?" she asked, not concerned. Amused. "Something's wrong with the food," I managed to say. My voice sounded weird, strained. "Is it?" She tilted her head. "Or are you just being dramatic again?" My throat was closing. I could feel it. This wasn't anxiety. This was the real thing. I got my EpiPen out. My hands were shaking. "You're really going to use that?" she asked. "Over spaghetti?" I stabbed it into my thigh. The needle went in. Immediate relief started, but not enough. My throat was still swelling. "I put peanut butter in the sauce," she said. Casual, like she was commenting on the weather. "Just a spoonful to prove you're faking." I stared at her. Couldn't breathe enough to talk. "You're fine," she said. "See? You're not dying. You're just anxious." I wasn't fine. The EpiPen helps, but it's not a cure. It buys time. I needed a hospital. I pulled out my phone, called 911. Could barely speak but managed to gasp out my address and anaphylaxis. Dispatcher said help was coming. Asked me to stay on the line, but I couldn't talk anymore. Lisa saw me on the phone. Her smile faded. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer. Focused on breathing. Each breath was a struggle. "You're calling 911? Are you serious right now?" I nodded. Managed to pull out a plastic bag from the drawer. Scooped some of the spaghetti into it. Evidence. "Why are you saving the food?" Her voice changed. Less amused. More worried. I heard sirens. Fast response time. Thank God. Lisa started panicking. "This is ridiculous. You're fine. Tell them you're fine when they get here." I shook my head. Walked to the door. Opened it. 2 paramedics came in fast. "Anaphylaxis," I croaked. Pointed to the used EpiPen I'd set on the table. They got to work immediately. Oxygen mask, checking vitals, asking questions I could barely answer. Lisa was hovering. "He's okay. He's just anxious. He does this." One of the paramedics looked at her. "Ma'am, his throat is severely swollen. This is a medical emergency." They got me on a stretcher. I grabbed the bag of spaghetti, held it up to the nearest paramedic. "Evidence," I whispered. "She poisoned it. Peanuts. I'm allergic." The paramedic's face changed. He looked at Lisa, then back at me. "She put peanuts in your food knowing you're allergic?" I nodded. He took the bag. "We're taking this." Lisa followed us to the ambulance. "This is insane. He's overreacting." "Don't take that food. It's our dinner." The paramedic shut the ambulance door in her face. In the ambulance, they got an IV in, more epinephrine, steroids, antihistamines. One of the paramedics radioed ahead to the hospital. Mentioned the food sample and possible poisoning. The other one asked if I wanted police at the hospital. I nodded. Yeah, I absolutely did. We got to the ER. They rushed me back. Doctors took over. More medications, monitoring. My throat was still swollen, but the medications were working. I could breathe better. A nurse came in, asked what happened. I explained the whole thing. She wrote it all down, looked grim. Your fiancé intentionally gave you an allergen? Yes. That's assault, possibly attempted murder, depending on how the DA sees it. Attempted murder. Those words made it real. 2 cops showed up about 20 minutes later. Young guy and an older woman. I told them everything, from the beginning. The months of comments, her dismissing my allergy, tonight's dinner, her confession. The older cop asked if I had any proof besides my statement. I told them about the food sample, that the paramedics had it, that it should still be in the ambulance. She left to go check on it. Came back 10 minutes later with the bag. Said they'd send it to the lab for testing, but it smelled like peanut butter, so she had no doubt. The male cop asked where Lisa was. I said probably on her way here. She'd been blowing up my phone. I showed him the texts. He radioed for units to watch for her at the ER. Said if she showed up, they'd take her into custody here. The cops stayed while I gave a formal statement, wrote down everything. Times, details, her exact words. They took photos of the used EpiPen, the IV in my arm, my medical bracelet that clearly states peanut allergy. About 30 minutes later, the male cop got a radio call. He stepped out, came back a minute later. She just walked into the waiting room, he said. Officers are bringing her back now. My stomach dropped. She actually came here. The female cop stayed with me. Her partner left to handle the arrest. 5 minutes later, I heard shouting from down the hall. Lisa's voice. I have a right to see him. He's my fiancé. Then more voices. Cops, firm, professional. Ma'am, you need to calm down. You're under arrest. For what? I didn't do anything. Assault with a deadly weapon. You have the right to remain silent. Her voice got farther away. They were taking her out. The female cop looked at me. She's in custody. They're transporting her to the station now. I just nodded. Couldn't really process it. You did the right thing pressing charges, she said. This wasn't an accident. She admitted what she did. The doctors wanted to keep me overnight for observation. Anaphylaxis can have a second wave, biphasic reaction, needed to make sure I was stable. I finally looked at my phone. 15 missed calls from Lisa. Dozens of texts. The first few were panic. Are you okay? Please answer. I'm sorry. Then they shifted. This is an overreaction. I barely put any in. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. Then anger. You're really going to the hospital over this? You're being dramatic. My sister was right. You're using this to control me. Then fear. Please don't tell anyone. We can work this out. Don't involve the police. This will ruin everything. Too late. I didn't respond to any of them. Put my phone on the bedside table and closed my eyes. About an hour later, a nurse came in. Said there were police in the waiting room with someone in custody. They needed to confirm my identity and ask a few follow-up questions. I said okay. The older cop came in. Said they'd arrested Lisa at the apartment. She'd resisted. Made a scene. Claimed I was mentally ill and making everything up. But when they told her about the food sample and my medical records, she admitted to putting peanut butter in the sauce. Said she was trying to prove I was faking. The cop asked if Lisa had access to my medical records. I said no, but I'd told her about my allergy multiple times. She'd seen me use an EpiPen before. 3 months ago I'd had a minor reaction at a restaurant and had to use it. She was there. The cop wrote that down. She asked if Lisa had ever done anything like this before. I told her about the comments, the dismissiveness, the Thai food incident, all of it. She said they were charging Lisa with assault with a deadly weapon. That in our state, knowingly exposing someone to a life-threatening allergen qualifies. That the DA would probably add more charges. Lisa was being processed at the station. Bail hearing would be tomorrow morning. The cop gave me her card, said to call if I remembered anything else, that I'd need to come to the station when I was released to sign the formal complaint. I said I would. She left. I was alone again. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Is this about Lisa? Woman's voice, older. Her mom. Yeah. What did you do? Angry, accusatory. What did I do? She tried to kill me. Don't be dramatic. She made a mistake. She admitted she put peanut butter in my food. I have a severe allergy. She knew that. It wasn't a mistake. You're blowing this out of proportion. She was trying to help you get over your fear. It's not a fear. It's a medical condition. Lisa said you've been controlling and paranoid, that you use this allergy to manipulate her. I hung up, blocked the number. 2 minutes later, another call. Lisa's sister? You had her arrested? Are you kidding me? I hung up. Blocked her too. Then her dad called. I blocked him without answering. A group text came through. Lisa's friends, saying I was a horrible person, that I was destroying her life over a mistake, that I was vindictive and cruel. I left the group chat, blocked all the numbers. My phone finally went quiet. A doctor came in around 11 p.m., said my vitals were stable, throat swelling was down, I'd be okay. They wanted to keep me until morning just to be safe. I said fine. Wasn't like I wanted to go home anyway. I texted my brother, told him what happened. He called immediately. She did what? I explained again. That's attempted murder. That's what the nurse said. Where is she now? Jail. They arrested her. Good. You're pressing charges? Already did. Good. Don't back down. I don't care if her family calls. I don't care if she apologizes. She tried to kill you. I know. Do you need me to come there? No, I'm okay. They're keeping me overnight. I'm coming tomorrow. You shouldn't be alone dealing with this. Okay. We talked for a while. He was furious, kept saying he never liked Lisa, that she always seemed off. Wish he'd said something earlier, but I get it. You don't want to be that person. We hung up. I tried to sleep, couldn't really. Kept replaying the moment she told me what she'd done. The look on her face, like it was funny. Around 2 a.m., a nurse came in to check vitals. Asked if I was okay. I said physically yes. She said she'd seen the police report, that she was sorry this happened. That people don't take allergies seriously enough. I appreciated that. Morning came. Doctor cleared me around 9 a.m. Said to follow up with my regular doctor. Avoid allergens, obviously. Watch for any delayed reactions. I got dressed, called an Uber. Wasn't going back to the apartment yet. My brother was already on his way. Said he'd meet me at his place. I went to the police station first, signed the formal complaint, gave another statement. They said the lab results would take a few days, but the preliminary field test showed clear presence of peanut proteins in the sauce. The detective said Lisa was still in custody. Bail hearing was scheduled for later that day. Asked if I wanted a restraining order. I said yes. They filed emergency protective order. Judge approved it within the hour. Lisa couldn't contact me or come within 500 feet. The detective said she'd be informed when she was released. If she was released, I left the station. My brother called. He was at his apartment. I went there. He met me at the door, hugged me hard. I almost cried but held it together. We sat down. He made coffee. I told him everything in detail. You can stay here as long as you need, he said. I need to get my stuff from the apartment. I'll go with you. We'll bring Dad too. Get everything in one trip. She might be there. Restraining order. She can't be there if you are. If she shows up, we call the cops. We went that afternoon. My brother, my dad, and 2 of my dad's friends. Big guys, just in case. Lisa wasn't there. The apartment was trashed. She destroyed some of my things, threw clothes everywhere, broke some dishes. We packed everything of mine we could find. Took about 3 hours. Loaded it into a truck. I left my key on the counter. The apartment lease was in my name only. I texted the landlord that I was breaking the lease due to a domestic violence situation. Explained briefly. Said I'd cover any penalties but couldn't stay there. He responded that evening. Said given the circumstances and police report, he'd waive the penalty and work with me on ending the lease early. Asked if Lisa would be staying. I said I didn't know and didn't care. We drove everything to a storage unit. I'd figure out next steps later. My brother took me back to his place. I crashed on his couch. Lisa's bail hearing happened while we were moving my stuff. My brother checked online. Bail set at 50 grand. She posted it. Got out that evening. But the restraining order was active. She couldn't contact me. That didn't stop her family. Her mom called my mom, screamed at her, said I was ruining Lisa's life, that I was vindictive and evil. My mom hung up on her. Her dad called my dad. Similar conversation. My dad told him if he called again, he'd regret it. Lisa's friends started posting on social media. Vague posts about false accusations and toxic men. I didn't respond. Didn't even look after the first few. My friends reached out, asked if the rumors were true. I told them yes, Lisa had deliberately given me peanuts despite my allergy, that I'd almost died, that she'd been arrested. They were horrified, supportive. Several offered their couches if I needed a place to stay. The wedding venue called, checking on our status and whether we needed to adjust any plans. I told them to cancel everything. I'd forfeit the deposit. Didn't care. They asked why. I gave them a brief explanation. The woman on the phone went quiet, then said she'd refund the full deposit, that they couldn't in good conscience keep money after what happened. I thanked her. The caterer did the same. So did the photographer. Apparently word was spreading in the vendor community. Nobody wanted to be associated with someone who'd poisoned their fiancé. 2 weeks went by. Preliminary hearing was scheduled. I had to testify, explain what happened. Lisa was there with a lawyer, some attorney her family had hired. She wouldn't look at me. Her lawyer tried to argue it was an accident, that she didn't know how serious the allergy was. The prosecutor brought up the texts, her admission, the multiple times I'd told her about the severity. The judge wasn't buying the defense, bound her over for trial. Lisa started crying. Her mom was in the back row, glaring at me like I was the villain. I left the courthouse. My brother was waiting outside. How'd it go? Trial's happening. She's pleading not guilty, but they have everything. Good. We got lunch. I was starting to feel more normal, less like everything was falling apart. My job had been understanding, gave me time off, said to take whatever I needed. I went back after 3 weeks. Coworkers were supportive. Nobody asked invasive questions. They just welcomed me back. Life started feeling manageable again. The trial took 4 months to actually happen, kept getting delayed. Lawyer stuff I didn't fully understand. When it finally came, it was fast. 2 days. Prosecution presented the evidence, the food sample, my medical records, the EpiPen, the paramedic testimony, the texts, her admission to the police. Defense tried to paint me as controlling, said I'd been manipulating Lisa about my allergy, that she was trying to help me overcome an irrational fear. My medical records destroyed that narrative. Hospital visits going back 23 years. Documentation from multiple doctors, allergy tests, everything. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty, assault with a deadly weapon. Sentencing was 2 weeks later. Judge gave her 3 years. She'd serve 18 months with good behavior, the rest suspended to probation, plus anger management and mandatory education about food allergies. Could have been worse, could have been better. Her family was outraged, screamed at the judge, had to be escorted out. I didn't feel victorious, just relieved it was over. Lisa went to county jail to start her sentence. I walked out of that courthouse and didn't look back. That was 18 months ago. She got out last month. Haven't heard from her. Protective order is permanent now. She's not allowed to contact me ever. Her family still posts about me sometimes. I'm the villain in their story, the man who destroyed their daughter's life over a misunderstanding. I know what happened. So do the courts. That's what matters. I'm alive. That's what counts. My fiancé made me meet her ex at a bar to prove I wasn't the jealous type. He spent an hour mocking me while she laughed, and she said, "Congratulations, you passed." I just smiled and paid the tab. This morning, after ignoring 50 missed calls, I answered the phone. It was her ex, crying, because the test was my idea to get him to confess on camera that they were still sleeping together. The whole twisted mess started with a simple request from my fiancée, Amelia. "I need you to meet my ex, Leo," she said about a week ago, her tone casual, almost bored. "It's important to me that you can prove you're not the jealous type." It was a test. With Amelia, everything was a test. I just smiled and agreed because the test wasn't hers, it was mine, and she had no idea she was about to fail spectacularly. Last night was the big performance. We walked into a dimly lit, overpriced bar, and there he was, sitting at a corner booth. Leo. He had that kind of generic, overconfident look that a lot of guys who peaked in college never managed to shake. He stood up, gave Amelia a hug that lasted a little too long, and then turned to me, shaking my hand with a grip that was meant to be intimidating. I just gave him a firm, simple handshake back. I wasn't there to compete. I was there to win. For the next hour, I sat there and listened. Leo told stories about the good old days with Amelia, full of inside jokes I couldn't possibly understand. He talked about his amazing job, his new car, his recent trip to some exotic island. It was a masterclass in passive-aggressive boasting. He'd mock my drink choice, my clothes, my quiet demeanor. "Amelia always went for the loud ones before you," he said with a smirk. "Guess she's in her quiet phase now." Through it all, Amelia just laughed. Not a polite titter, but a full, genuine laugh, like he was the funniest man in the world. She'd touch his arm, lean in close to hear him over the music, and look at me with an expression that said, "See, this is what a real man is like." I just sat there, nodding, smiling politely, playing the part of the slightly insecure but tolerant fiancé she wanted me to be. I didn't defend myself. I didn't get angry. I let them have their fun, letting them think they were in complete control. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Amelia looked at her watch. "Well," she announced, "I think this went well." She turned to me, a triumphant glint in her eye. "Congratulations, you passed." I just smiled. "I'm glad," I said. I pulled out my wallet, dropped enough cash on the table to cover their expensive cocktails, and stood up. "You two enjoy the rest of your night." I walked out of the bar without looking back, leaving them sitting there in a state of stunned silence. They had expected a fight, a scene, a breakdown. They got calm, polite acceptance. The confusion was the first part of their punishment. The thing is, I knew. I had known for 3 weeks. My best friend Mark had seen them. He was at a coffee shop across town and saw Amelia and Leo walk in together. He said they weren't acting like old friends catching up. They were acting like a couple, holding hands across the table, a quick kiss when they thought no one was looking. Mark felt terrible telling me, but he's a true friend. He took a quick, discreet picture on his phone and sent it to me with a simple message. "Dude, you need to see this." The picture hit me like a punch to the gut. But after the initial wave of hurt and betrayal, something else took over. A cold, methodical anger. I could have confronted her then and there, but that would have just resulted in a storm of lies, gaslighting, and crocodile tears. She would have twisted it, made it my fault, accused me of being a paranoid, jealous monster. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. I didn't want a messy breakup. I wanted a controlled demolition. I wanted proof so undeniable that it would shatter her entire world. So I started planning. I knew I needed to get them in a room together, where Leo's ego and Amelia's cruelty would make them feel safe enough to expose themselves. I had to make them think it was their idea. For the next 2 weeks, I played a part. I became the slightly jealous fiancé. A couple of nights after Mark sent me the picture, I put the first piece in place. We were watching a movie and her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled before quickly turning it over. I waited a beat, then asked, "Who was that?" in a tone that was just a little too sharp. She immediately got defensive. "Just my friend Jessica. Why are you so suspicious all of a sudden?" I dropped it, but the seed was planted. A few days later, I made a comment about her getting home late from a girls' night. It was a delicate balance. I had to be just annoying enough to provoke her, but not so aggressive that she would see it as a threat. It worked perfectly. She started complaining to her friends that I was becoming controlling. Her best friend, the same Jessica from the text messages, even pulled me aside at a gathering. "Amelia's worried about you," she said, dripping with fake concern. "She feels like you don't trust her." I played the part, apologizing and saying I was just feeling a little insecure lately. I was building a narrative that would make her next move seem completely justified to everyone in her circle. After 2 weeks of my manufactured insecurity, she sat me down for the serious talk I was expecting. She told me my jealousy was becoming a problem, that it was a red flag for her. She said she couldn't be with a man who didn't trust her. And then she delivered the line I had been waiting for. "I think you need to meet Leo," she said. "You need to see that we're just friends, and you need to prove to me that you can handle it." I pretended to be hesitant, then reluctantly agreed. The trap was set. The night of the test, I was prepared. I wore a jacket with a small, high-fidelity audio recorder in the inside pocket. I also had a pen in my shirt pocket. It was a nice pen, a gift from a client. It also happened to have a high-definition camera embedded in it, capable of recording for over 2 hours. Before I left, I checked my bank accounts. Just as I suspected, the supplementary credit card I had given Amelia for emergencies had seen a lot of action in the past few weeks. A $2,000 handbag, a spa day with Jessica, an expensive dinner at a restaurant I'd never been to. She was getting comfortable, getting sloppy. It was another piece of evidence, another log on the fire. In the bar, I let Leo's mockery wash over me. I needed him to see me as weak, as a non-threat. About halfway through his performance, I leaned forward and put on my most sincere, good guy face. "Listen, man," I said, my voice full of fake vulnerability. "I know this is awkward, but I love Amelia, and I trust her. She says you two are just friends. I guess I need to hear it from you, just for my own peace of mind." It was like throwing gasoline on his ego. He puffed out his chest and leaned back, a predator enjoying the fear of his prey. Amelia was loving every second of it. This was the drama she craved. "Friends?" Leo chuckled, looking at Amelia. "Yeah, you could say we're friends. Very, very close friends." "I get it," I said, nodding like a fool. "You guys have history. I respect that." "History? Buddy, we're making new history all the time," he boasted. He was so high on his own arrogance, he couldn't help himself. "Where do you think she was last Tuesday night when she said she was with her sister? She wasn't learning how to bake bread, I'll tell you that." Amelia giggled, covering her mouth like a schoolgirl. "They thought they were breaking me. In reality, they were just handing me the shovel to bury them with." I pushed one last time. "So you're saying you're still sleeping with her?" I asked, my voice cracking with just the right amount of fake emotion. Leo leaned in close, his voice a low, triumphant whisper. "Every chance I get, buddy, and she loves it. She comes to you for the boring, stable stuff. She comes to me for the fun." That was it, the confession. Clear, undeniable, and recorded in high-definition video and audio. I played my part for a few more minutes. Then came the moment Amelia announced that I had passed her test. My calm departure from the bar wasn't an act of shock or defeat. It was the calm of a general who had just watched his enemy walk directly into a perfectly laid ambush. When I got home, I didn't waste a second. The first thing I did was call my credit card company and report the supplementary card as stolen. I disputed the recent charges, explaining that my fiancé had been using it for unauthorized personal purchases. They immediately froze the card. Then I started packing. Amelia had moved into my condo about 6 months ago. She never paid a dime for rent or bills, but she had filled the closets with her things. I didn't bother with neatness. I just started piling everything into boxes and bags. Her clothes, her shoes, her ridiculous collection of makeup, everything. While I was packing, I did some more research. I already knew Leo's full name, and it wasn't hard to find him online. He had a very public profile on a professional networking site. It listed his job, his accomplishments, and, most importantly, his relationship status. Engaged. To a woman named Clara. A quick search for Clara's name revealed something even more interesting. Her father was a man named Richard Sterling, the founder and CEO of the very company where Leo worked as a high-level executive. Leo wasn't just cheating on his fiancée, he was cheating on the boss's daughter. A fatal career mistake. I found a recent Society column article with a picture of Richard Sterling. The man looked like he chewed nails for breakfast. He was not a man who would appreciate being made a fool of. I took the video file from the pen camera and the audio file from the recorder. I edited them together into a short 3-minute clip. It was damning. It showed Leo's arrogant mockery, Amelia's gleeful laughter, and his crystal-clear confession, all in pristine quality. I uploaded the video to a private, password-protected server. Then I drafted 2 emails. The first email was to Clara. The subject line was, "Something you need to see regarding your fiancé, Leo." In the email, I explained who I was and the context of the test. I wrote that I was deeply sorry to be the bearer of such terrible news, but that I believed she had a right to know the truth about the man she was planning to marry. I included the link to the video and the password. The second email was to her father, Richard Sterling. The subject line was, "Confidential matter regarding your employee, Leo." The email was more formal. I introduced myself and explained that I had uncovered evidence of extremely unprofessional and unethical behavior by one of his executives. I mentioned that this behavior had personal implications for his family and that he should view the attached evidence at his earliest convenience. I included the same video link and password. I sent both emails at around 2 in the morning. Then I finished packing Amelia's things, piling the boxes by the front door. I changed the passcodes on the electronic locks. And then, finally, I turned my attention to my phone. 50 missed calls. A flood of texts. They started with confusion, then moved to anger, then to a strange, panicked concern. "Are you okay?" Amelia wrote in one. "I'm worried about you. That wasn't how the night was supposed to end." The gaslighting was truly breathtaking. I put my phone on silent and went to bed. For the first time in months, I slept soundly. I woke up this morning to the sound of my phone ringing. It was a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring for a while, then, out of curiosity, I answered. I put it on speakerphone. A man's voice, choked with sobs, came through the line. "What did you do?" He wailed. "It was Leo." "Leo?" I said, my voice calm and detached. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "She saw it. Clara saw the video," he cried. "Her father saw it. I'm ruined. My life is over. Why would you do that?" I let the silence hang in the air for a moment. "I don't know what you're talking about, Leo," I said. "Last night, you seemed so proud of yourself. You were so eager to tell me how you were sleeping with my fiancé. I just thought your fiancé and your boss should get to see what a big man you are. You wanted an audience. I just made it a little bigger." He started screaming then, a string of incoherent threats and pleas. He begged me to take the video down, to tell them it was a joke. I just said, "You made your bed, Leo. Now you get to lie in it." Then I hung up and blocked his number. The fallout was swift and brutal. About an hour later, I saw an article on a local business news website. The headline read, "Sterling Corp executive fired amidst scandal." The article was vague, citing unethical personal conduct, but I knew exactly what it was about. Richard Sterling was a man who did not tolerate betrayal, in his business or his family. Leo was finished. Amelia was next. She must have spoken to Leo because she showed up at my condo around noon, buzzing the intercom frantically. I didn't answer. She started calling my phone over and over. I let it ring. Then came the emails, each one more desperate than the last. She was sorry. She had made a terrible mistake. Leo meant nothing to her. She loved me. She said the test was stupid, that she was just insecure. She begged me to let her come home. I responded with a single email. The subject was your belongings. The body of the email was simple. "Amelia, your things are packed. A moving service will be delivering them to your parents' address this afternoon. The passcode on the door has been changed. The relationship is over. Any further attempts to contact me will be treated as harassment." I attached the video file to the email, just so she knew exactly what I had. The moving company I hired was instructed to arrive at 2 in the afternoon. I was there to supervise. As expected, Amelia was still there, sitting on the floor in the hallway, surrounded by her boxes, crying. When the movers arrived, she tried to cause a scene, yelling that this was her home and they couldn't take her things. I had anticipated this. I had already spoken to my building security and they were discreetly waiting down the hall. They stepped forward and calmly informed her that if she did not cooperate, they would have to call the police and have her removed for trespassing. Defeated, she just slumped against the wall and watched as the movers efficiently loaded her entire life onto a truck. Her family was the final piece of the puzzle. Her mother called first, all sweet reason and concern. She said Amelia had explained everything, that it was all a terrible misunderstanding, and that my overreaction was very worrying. I told her I would send her the same misunderstanding Amelia had seen, and she could judge for herself. Then her father called, a blustering, angry man used to getting his way. He started yelling about how I had humiliated his daughter, how I had a responsibility to take care of her. I let him finish. Then I said, "Sir, I am about to send you an email with a video file attached. After you watch it, you and I will have nothing further to discuss." I sent him the same video. He didn't call back. The aftermath has been quiet. The moving company confirmed that Amelia's belongings were delivered. I got a single, venomous text from her sister calling me a monster, which I promptly blocked. Leo has disappeared from social media. Clara posted a picture of herself on a plane with the caption, "On to better things." Good for her. Yesterday, I got an email from Jessica, Amelia's best friend. It was a short, awkward apology. She showed me the video. It read, I had no idea. I'm so sorry for my part in all this. It seems even her staunchest defenders couldn't argue with high-definition proof. I spent the weekend cleaning my condo, getting rid of any last trace of Amelia. It feels bigger now, lighter. The whole relationship was a performance, a long, elaborate test that I was never meant to pass. She wanted me to be jealous so she could control me. She wanted me to be weak so she could feel strong. She underestimated me completely. She thought she was testing a loyal, slightly pathetic fiancé. She had no idea she was messing with a man who had already figured out her entire game and was just waiting for the right moment to checkmate her. At a concert, my girlfriend climbed on her male best friend's shoulders while laughing. "You're taller, way better than my boyfriend." The crowd cheered. I just left. The next morning, she realized she'd lost more than just me. You ever have one of those moments where everything just goes quiet? The whole world zooms in on one single thing, and you see it for exactly what it is. For me, that happened last Friday night, in the middle of a screaming crowd of thousands, and the thing I saw was the absolute end of my relationship. Let me lay it out. My name is Leo. I'm 33. I own a gym. My life is about discipline, strength, and cutting out the bull. I don't have time for games. My girlfriend Maya, 2 years together, is the opposite. She loves games. She creates drama because she thinks it makes her interesting. For a while, I thought it was just how she was wired, but was starting to realize it was a choice to be selfish and disrespectful. The main issue was a guy named Eric, her male best friend, the brother. I'm not an idiot. I see how he looks at her, the way he's always touching her arm, her back. About 6 months ago, I laid it all out. We had a huge fight about him. I told her I wasn't going to be the guy who sits there and pretends he doesn't see what's happening. I told her to either cut the crap and put some serious distance between them, or we were done. She cried. She swore he was just a friend, but she promised. She said she'd back him off, that our relationship was her priority. And for a while, she actually did. The late-night texts stopped. He wasn't at every single dinner. I thought we'd actually fixed it. Then came the concert last Friday. It was for her favorite band. I busted my ass to get tickets, spent way more than I should have because I wanted to do something special for us. It was supposed to be our night, a date. We get through the gates, and the first person I see is him. Eric, standing there with this smug grin on his face. My gut clenched. What's he doing here? I didn't even try to hide the edge in my voice. Maya immediately went on the defensive. "Oh my God, Leo, don't start. He got a ticket from a friend. It's a total coincidence." I just looked at her. Then I looked at him. The look he gave me back, a little victorious smirk, told me everything. This was no coincidence. This was a setup. She had lied to me. She had broken the one promise I had made a deal breaker. "Right," I said. Just that one word. I should have walked away right then. But I paid for the tickets. And I was going to see the band. I decided I would just treat them like they weren't there. A stupid plan, I know. But Maya and Eric had other ideas. They were all over each other, whispering, laughing, 100 inside jokes I wasn't a part of. She was putting on a performance, and I was the chump in the background. I wasn't her date. I was the guy who drove her there. The headliner comes on, the crowd surges forward, and Maya starts complaining she can't see. She's not tall, so it was probably true. "Leo, let me get on your shoulders," she says like nothing is wrong. "You know I have a bad back," I told her. "We can just move to the side a bit." She gave me a 5-second pout, then turned to Eric with a bright, fake smile. Eric will do it. He's strong." And just like that, he's crouching down and she's climbing onto his shoulders. The crowd around us, a bunch of drunk kids, started cheering. She was loving it, playing to them, living her main character moment. Then she looked down at me. He's a few inches taller, so she was really looking down. She laughed, a loud, ugly sound. "See," she shouted, making sure everyone around us could hear. "You're taller. Way better than my boyfriend." The crowd roared. They thought it was great. Eric just stared at me with that same smug, punchable face. He'd won. And that's when everything went quiet for me. The music, the crowd, everything faded. It was just this cold, hard clarity. This was it. The final line. I didn't get angry, I didn't yell. I just looked up at her. This girl I thought I loved, making a fool of me on another man's shoulders. And I smiled. Because I was done. I turned and walked away. I didn't have to shove my way through the crowd. It was like they could feel the vibe coming off me and just parted. I didn't look back once. I walked out of that venue, into the cool night air, and I felt nothing but relief. They were so wrapped up in their little victory, they probably didn't even notice I was gone. Update 1. The taxi ride home was the best 45 minutes I've had in a long time. My head was completely clear. No more second guessing, no more wondering if I was the crazy one. I knew exactly what I had to do. I got back to my apartment, my name on the lease, my furniture, a little after 10. First thing I did was shoot the deadbolt. Then I went straight to our bedroom and started packing her stuff. I wasn't just throwing it around. I used her own expensive luggage. I packed everything. The closet, the bathroom, the whole 9 yards. By midnight, it was like she had never lived there. Just a row of suitcases lined up by the front door. I knew they'd come back eventually, probably drunk and expecting me to have gotten over it. I sat on the couch, put on a game, and waited. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard them stumbling and laughing. Her key scraped in the lock, then hit the deadbolt. Confusion. Then the banging started. "Leo, let me in. The door's stuck," she yelled. I didn't move. I just watched them on the doorbell camera. Eric, trying to be the tough guy, tried to shoulder the door and just bounced off like a fucking idiot. It was almost funny. Finally, she called my phone. I answered. "Leo, what the hell is wrong with the door?" "Nothing's wrong with it," I said. "It's locked." "Well, unlock it." "No." A beat of silence. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, you don't live here anymore, Maya. I believe you found someone way better. So you can go live with him. Your bags are packed. Have a nice life." I could hear Eric yelling something in the background. She started sputtering. "You're breaking up with me over a joke?" "You broke up with us when you lied to my face and brought him to the concert," I said. "The rest was just you confirming my decision in front of a few thousand people. We're done." I hung up and blocked both of their numbers. The banging and yelling continued. Finally, I walked right up to the door and shouted through it. "Hey, Maya, tell the moron to take it easy on my door before he sprains something. You'll need him to carry your bags." Eventually, they gave up and left. I watched them go on the camera. It felt good. The next morning, I moved her luggage into the hallway of the building. I used an app to send an anonymous text to her phone. "Your things are in the hall." Then I went to the gym. When I got back, they were gone. The peace didn't last long. By Monday, the smear campaign had started. I was the villain. I was the jealous, controlling boyfriend who couldn't take a joke. I had abandoned her at a concert and then, in a violent, unhinged rage, had thrown her out of her home. The story spread like wildfire through our friend group. I got a few texts from people who bought her story. I just deleted them. My real friends, the ones who actually know me, called to ask what was up. I told them the truth, simply and without drama. They got it. The rest, I didn't care about. If they were stupid enough to believe her version of events, they weren't people I needed in my life anyway. I knew they would push it. I knew Eric, especially, wouldn't be able to let it go. His ego was too big. So I just waited. I knew they'd come for another round. They found me on Saturday, a week after the concert. I was in the parking garage of my building, loading some new weights into my truck. They pulled up and blocked me in. She got out, crying. He got out, looking for a fight. "Leo, we need to talk," she said. "No, we don't," I replied, not even looking at them. Eric stepped up. "Hey, she's talking to you. You're gonna show her some respect." I finally turned and faced him. "This has nothing to do with you. Back off." "I'm not going anywhere," he said, getting right up in my personal space. He was trying to use his height to intimidate me. It wasn't working. "You humiliated her. You are going to apologize." I actually laughed in his face. "Apologize? Get out of my way, Eric." I tried to step past him and he shoved me, hard, right in the chest, stumbling me back a step. I said apologize, and that was it. All the disrespect, all the lies, all the smirking, it all came to a head right there. He put his hands on me. He made it physical. He shoved me again, and my body just reacted. I've been training my whole life. It was one punch, a short, straight right hand. It landed flush on his jaw, and he just folded. He was out before he hit the concrete. Maya started screaming. "Oh my God, you monster! I'm calling the cops." "Go ahead," I said, shaking out my hand. And when they get here, I'll show them the security footage from this garage that shows your boyfriend assaulting me first. See who they believe." She froze, her phone in her hand. She looked at Eric, groaning on the ground. She looked at me, standing there, perfectly calm. And in her eyes, I saw the first flicker of something that looked a lot like fear. Update 2. The knockout changed the game. It wasn't about winning a fight, it was about ending one. Maya, with tears streaming down her face, managed to get a dazed and bleeding Eric into his car. They sped out of the garage without another word. The threat of security footage and an assault charge was the one thing her drama couldn't overcome. The story of the punch spread, of course. But without the context, their version of events didn't have the impact they wanted. My real friends knew the truth, and anyone who had been at the concert and seen her behavior had a pretty good idea of what led up to it. Their campaign to paint me as the unhinged villain just fizzled out. You can't really claim someone as a monster when you're the one who was publicly humiliating him a week before. A week later, the begging started. She started using her friends' phones to text me. Long, rambling apologies. It was a mistake. She'd had too much to drink. Eric was just a friend, the usual garbage. I just blocked the numbers as they came. Then, she showed up at my gym. I was in the middle of a session with a client. She just walked in, looking like a ghost. I told my client to take 5 and walked her outside. "You can't be here," I told her. "Leo, please," she begged. "I made the biggest mistake of my life. I know that now." "Good," I said. "Then you know why we have nothing to talk about. But I love you. I'll do anything." I told Eric I can't see him anymore, I swear. "It's too late," I said, turning to go back inside. "No, wait," she grabbed my arm. "We can fix this." "I know we can. There's just one thing." I knew it. I could see the insane entitlement was still there, right behind the fake tears. "What?" I asked. She took a breath. "I'll come back. I'll do whatever you want. But first, you have to apologize to Eric. You really hurt him, and it wasn't his fault. He was just defending me. If you just tell him you're sorry, we can move on from all this." I just stared at her. For a solid 10 seconds, I thought my brain had broken. The sheer, breathtaking delusion of it. She wanted me to apologize to the guy she emotionally cheated on me with, the guy who helped her humiliate me, the guy who assaulted me. It was so insane, it was almost brilliant. I started to laugh, a deep, loud laugh that came from my gut. I couldn't stop. I was laughing so hard I had to lean against the wall. "What's so funny?" she asked, confused and angry. "You are," I finally gasped, wiping a tear from my eye. "You really truly still think you have any say in this? You think you're the prize here?" I straightened up and looked her dead in the eye. "Get out of here, Maya. Don't ever come back. We are done. And no, I will not be apologizing to your boyfriend." I went back into my gym and locked the door. Final update. It's been 6 months. I haven't heard a peep from her since that day. The threat of a restraining order was the one message that finally got through her thick skull. Her life, from what I've heard from the few mutual friends I still talk to, has been a dumpster fire. She and Eric tried to make a go of it, but their entire dynamic was based on him being the exciting alternative to me. Once I was out of the picture, they had nothing to rebel against, and they just imploded. They had a massive public fight at a bar, and that was the end of that. Eric's reputation took a major hit. The story of him getting knocked out after getting caught with his best friend's girlfriend made him a local legend for all the wrong reasons. His big tough guy act was a joke now. I heard he had to get a couple of crowns too, which couldn't have been cheap. Maya ended up having to move back in with her parents. Without me funding her lifestyle, she couldn't afford her apartment. She got a boring office job and apparently complains about it constantly. She went from being the queen of the party to just another person stuck in a cubicle. The ultimate irony. I saw her once, a few weeks ago. I was on a date with someone new. We were at a restaurant and Maya was our waitress. She saw me, her face went completely white, and she immediately told her manager she was sick and left. My date asked me what that was all about. I just smiled and said, "It's a long story." And it is a long story, but it's a story that's over. The best revenge wasn't the punch, or locking her out, or any of it. It was simply refusing to be a character in her drama anymore. I walked off the stage and let her and Eric have the spotlight they so desperately wanted. And, like most bad actors, they flopped. They lost more than just a boyfriend that night. They lost their audience. And for people like them, that's a fate worse than death.